Amelia Kane is a police analyst. On February 23rd, she was filling out a report on missing persons. This is something she did periodically, nothing out of the ordinary. And she noticed, just in passing, that someone had gone missing on the 21st, and they had a birthday that was also the 21st. Not 21st of February, it was 21st of May. But it was interesting. And it jogged something in her mind. So she looked back at another report and realized that there had been someone that had gone missing in January. And they had gone missing on the 20th. And their birthday happened to be the 20th of August. Not the same birth date as the day they disappeared, but the same number. And Amelia loved data. It was her one true fascination. She was a junkie. Numbers fascinated her. She did amateur code breaking, cryptology, as a hobby. So she began to poke around the old reports and discovered that over the last 20 months, there had been quite a few people that he had either gone missing or ended up being murdered. And it was discovered that their murder took place on or near, at least to the best estimation, a day that aligned with their birth date. She found 19 people. 12 of them had been killed. All of them under mysterious circumstances. A couple of them confirmed homicides. So, being very thorough, detail-oriented, there's a reason Amelia Kane is a police analyst. She put this all together, wrote it up, and presented it to her supervisor, who promptly ignored her, as bureaucratic supervisors are often wont to do. There was no reason to do this report, so why do it? Why are you bothering me with this kind of thing, Amelia? Go back and do what you're supposed to. But Amelia now was interested. So, she kept her eyes open. She had looked at the missing person reports every single day. Not just to compile them at the end of the month like she normally did, but this time she was really fascinated. And as the 22nd of March rolled around, she started paying distinct, particular attention. And no one disappeared that day. A little disappointed, she went on with her life. A week later, they found someone dead. And when they looked at phone records and purchasing history, all of the last things that this person did had stopped on the 22nd. That was too much for Amelia. So instead of going to her supervisor, which really is what she should have done, she put all of her information together she had. She went out and found the detectives that had received the first of these cases from someone who had disappeared on the 2nd many months ago. Amelia figured there had been someone the month before, and there definitely had been someone on the 3rd and the 4th and the 5th and all the following months. And believe it or not, the two detectives listened, and they looked, and they read, and they checked, and they double-checked. And then they realized that Amelia was correct. And thus was born the Calendar Man. Now, why am I doing this? I'm presenting a villain, a serial killer, for use in a superhero game, a police procedural. You could probably squeeze this into Cyberpunk. Any number of systems you could do this in. Might even work in a fantasy setting if it was low powered and it was kind of more film noir kind of thing. But I think it works best in the real world. And I chose this particular serial killer, this particular name, in fact, because I'm trying to redeem the original Calendar Man in DC Comics. Now I realize that at later iterations of the character, versions of the character, that he was more of a Hannibal Lecter style, and I don't know anything about that. I just know the original kind of goofy, silly Calendar Man, born in an era when all of the DC heroes and villains were just very, very weird and stupid. I have to blame a lot of this on drug use from the 60s and 70s. Um, so I'm kind of trying to redeem Calendar Man by making him someone that is in the process of a project. And his project is to kill one person per month. The victim must be from the day and their birth date must align. And there's going to be a total of 31 of them. And the last killing will fall on December 31st. A total of 31 months of killing. Whether any of this killing takes place on a leap year is unimportant. That the Calendar Man is more concerned with the fact that at the end of the 28th to 28th doesn't really need to factor in the 29th at all. If you want to go to the trouble of doing that, fine. I wouldn't. He does something on my 28th that day if you want to, or if you figure out whatever you want. It could be any month. It doesn't have to be that day. But some people might want to kind of shoehorn that in for interest. I wouldn't. So, like for example, in the month that Amelia Kane found this particular pattern was on February 21st. So I don't know what the previous February would have been. You can figure that one out. And now, of course, once the cops know that the victim had been March 22nd, they know that April 23rd, the next victim is going to be taken. So they know that the Calendar Man has a database, either currently gathered or gathered at some previous point, and has a large database of information that he or she can use for stalking targets. Probably has more than one target data for each day in case something falls through. It probably has backup plans. And that's going to be particularly get harder now that the police know, the general community is eventually going to find out. There'll be a leak, or they'll maybe do an official press release once they have enough confirmation. And once they began to look for victims, and maybe they find out some more bodies, and they discover that they in fact did disappear. Even the people that are still missing, they did disappear on those days because, again, their phone and their shopping records and things like that all point to that day. We have a lot of trails in our lives nowadays, folks. I mean, just today I shopped in 5 stores, six, I guess if you count a gas station, all of which left a record of me behind. So if I were to disappear after making this video and had never purchased anything again and never made a phone call again, that's going to be a strong indication that I disappeared on this day. So, yeah. Now, if the Calendar Man has information on people that have less of a trail, he or she may be saving those for the end of the cycle to make it harder to track. So maybe they have some records of military veterans that are known to be homeless all or most of the time. Maybe this information came from the DMV, Social Security, IRS. So the Calendar Man, again, they don't know if it's a man or a woman, probably a man, most serial killers are, had been a former employee or a current employee of one of these organizations, so has access or had access to a vast database to pool and pull things in on. Could be targeting specifically people that live alone. They may find that out because it's easier to isolate that person than if they have a lot of familial connections. It's more difficult to isolate them from children and from a spouse or roommates, things like that. So again, this is just an idea. I haven't done anything with this. I came up with at work a couple days ago. I just kind of floating it around, figuring that it might be useful to somebody. But I think we could have some fun with this and really turn the Calendar Man concept into a scary, haunting kind of a character as opposed to the kind of goofy character that he was originally in this silly costume that had like pages of calendars on it, and it was garishly the era that gave us a Hawkeye that was in purple. Okay, you get me here, get me there, or Power Man in a bright yellow shirt with a deep V-neck and a headband. Yeah, it was a weird era, folks. It was a weird era. Um, so let's see what we can do with Calendar Man. What would you do with Calendar Man? How would you change him or her? Do you think there needs to be a hook in there that I haven't thought of, or you think that might throw a monkey wrench into something? Do you want to up the scale and make this really hard, and that maybe that the Calendar Man is going to make a spectacular ending to this by the targeting on the 31st is going to include someone that has the birth date of the 31st, but maybe it's going to be a mass killing. Maybe that's going to be the final bonanza, the equivalent of a fireworks display. Heck, maybe it'll involve a fireworks display for kind of a macabre ending to the whole process. So what would you do with the Calendar Man?